Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, May 12th, 2019, and today we're going to be looking at a 2020 presidential election prediction between Senator Elizabeth Warren from the state of Massachusetts and, of course, President Donald Trump. So I haven't really done a Warren versus Trump video in a while, surprisingly. I do think that it is going to be an interesting matchup. I've decided to do this Warren video because she is the third place candidate nationwide amongst Democratic nominee choices, and I've decided that I'm pretty much going to be doing the first 1 through 4th place candidates, unless a candidate, all of a sudden becomes relevant in the news and a lot of people know who they are. Then I'll do something that's more relevant. But as of right now, we're just going to stick with the top 3 or 4 candidates. As of right now, that would be, I believe, Warren and Buttigieg or Warren and Harris. I think it's Warren and Harris. But again, today we're just going to be looking at this electoral map. So Donald Trump, of course, is going to be represented by the Republicans with the red, and Elizabeth Warren represented by the Democrats with the blue. And that's just, I guess, the color scheme in case you didn't know. But if you're on my channel, you definitely know by now. But again, let's get right into this video. So essentially, this election I do think could be very interesting. There's a lot of discussion about Donald Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas and how that could be used against him in the general election if Warren actually makes it past the primaries. Warren was a top name in 2016. She was also a top name for 2020. The polling numbers didn't really indicate either that it would be a top name bigger than Joe Biden, bigger than Bernie Sanders, bigger than Hillary Clinton, enough to win these primary elections. So yes, her name was definitely discussed very early on back in 2017. I mean, Warren was probably, the 3rd or 4th video I've made out of the 750 videos I've made on my channel. And that was, her name was just a real top name that you would think for 2020. Elizabeth Warren was right up there along with Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden. But she's coming in at 3rd place, which I do expect. I didn't expect her to do too well in the primaries, which means she's probably not going to be the Democratic nominee. But again, things can change. So let's start off by factoring in all of the safe Democratic states. We know states on the West Coast are going to be a safe Democratic state. By the way, this is a little bit newer to what I'm used to. Usually I do it down here, and I also use the 270 theme, which is this theme right here, the default theme. Tell me if you guys want me to use that, or I can use the light theme that I'm using right now, or if you want me to change the chart to down there, or just keep it on the side. But that's what I'm using. By the way, the website I'm using is yet another political map simulator, yapms.com. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and characterize all the safe Democratic states. Again, they are pretty much the same every single election season, going up to the Northeast and then going over to the state of Illinois, District of Columbia, typical safe Democratic states. Now, for the Republican Party, I can't say they will have more electoral votes, but they definitely have a very, general area. If you look at the Democratic Party, their support is pretty much Northeast and then West Coast and then one pocket in around the Rust Belt area. But if we're looking for the Republican safe states, pretty much all of them are connected through one another. The only one I think that wouldn't be is the state of Alaska. Nebraska's 2nd district is not considered a safe district in this election. But again, we usually end up with the same 231 toss-up electoral votes, and Elizabeth Warren is no different. Though she may seem like the probably one of the worst candidates for the 2020 general election, that may or may not be the case. Looking at someone like her, she is a pretty strong person. Looking at her very strong opposition to the president. I think she actually votes with him maybe 12% of the time in terms of in terms of things that he supports or does not support. That's pretty interesting. She definitely holds her ground against him and against other people, including people like Joe Biden. I mean, she's already starting to attack other Democrats, but I do think that she could be somewhat like Hillary Clinton in 2020, just a little bit more progressive, but not too progressive. I think there's like that little, Goldilocks zone where it's like not a centrist Democrat where they be classified as too conservative, but not too progressive, so they're not too far on the right, too far on the left, but the right always characterizes Elizabeth Warren as too far to the left, and then the progressive left always characterizes her as too far. Yes, some progressives do claim her, but again, she just gets attacked from all candidates do. That's not singular to her. But she's about, a little bit more progressive than Hillary Clinton. I mean, she does come from the state of Massachusetts. But looking at this electoral map, again, same toss-up states. We're going to actually focus on the states that Donald Trump would win first, because I haven't really done – I usually go with the states that the Democrats win, and when it's an election between Biden or Sanders against Trump, typically the Democrat comes out ahead based off my prediction as of right now. But I actually want to go through the states that I believe Donald Trump would win first. But the state of Texas is definitely going to be in the likely column. I do not see Elizabeth Warren at all bringing this state down closer than it was in 2016. That would be completely on the backs of immigrant and minority turnout, and that just may or may not happen depending on the candidate. Probably will not be super easy for someone like Elizabeth Warren, but we see other states like Georgia, which I also think will be in the likely column. Keep in mind, both of these states are characterized, yes, as swing states. That's only because of 2016 and 2018. Those are the last previous two elections, and sure, does show these states narrowing up, but it has to be the right type of candidate. Beto O'Rourke visited all of the counties in Texas, and Texas has the most counties out of any state in the United States. Georgia also has a lot of counties. Actually, I believe Texas and Georgia actually may not have the same amount, but definitely have a lot for both of the states. But Georgia also, really a large Republican population that does not favor the president. So Mitt Romney, John McCain type candidates, perfect for the Georgian Republican voter. But if you're looking at 2016 results, yes, Hillary Clinton could have done better amongst African American turnout. But again, they definitely embraced Romney over Barack Obama and definitely embraced McCain over Barack Obama as well. So that argument, yes, there's a little bit of a shift there, but also they are not too happy with the president right now. But Elizabeth Warren is not necessarily the best alternative for them, especially considering the state of Georgia definitely would support centrist Democrats over more progressive Democrats. Looking over to the state of North Carolina, I think this one could actually be likely. I think this one could actually be 5 to 6%. Yes, the state is typically characterized as a lean state for most Democrats, but the state hasn't gone back to the Democratic Party since 64 and then 2008. 2008 was the last time, and it was by 0.3%. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't insane. I mean, Obama won Indiana more than he won the state of North Carolina. Yet every election season, Indiana's safe Republican, and North Carolina's always a toss-up until it's not. And if we're looking at the numbers, it just doesn't work out for the Democratic Party. I mean, Roy Cooper was like, a fluke in 2016. Hillary Clinton lost the state of North Carolina. I did not see Elizabeth Warren doing too well here either. Now, moving over to the state of Arizona, this is another state that I do think that Donald Trump is going to win. This is the first state I'm going to characterize as a lean state for either party, because Arizona is definitely going to be a lean state, if not a toss-up state. I would say a lean state in an election between Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump. She's not going to be able to bring out Latino voters the same way you'd expect someone like Beto O'Rourke or Julian Castro to. Both two candidates who are around maybe 6th for Beto O'Rourke nationwide, and then like 14th for Julian Castro. But right now, the state of Arizona, I would characterize as a lean Republican state. Now, going over to some Democratic states, we already know that the state of Virginia is going to be a likely Democratic state. That's pretty much going to stay how it is. A lot of comments have been saying, oh, Virginia's not that safe. You don't understand the Virginia electorate. It's pretty easy to understand. I mean, every election season, it's gotten more and consistently more Democratic, and 2020 is definitely going to be the time. If we're looking at the approval rating polls as well, sure, they're down in some of these Republican states have already characterized for the president, but Virginia already did not like Donald Trump. There's no way that somehow a president here with 39% approval rating in Virginia is going to gain even more voters, and it's probably going to stay around where it was with Hillary Clinton, if not a little bit more to the left. New Mexico and Colorado. Actually, Colorado, I would narrow down to a lean margin. New Mexico, I would keep in the likely margin. New Mexico is pretty good for the Democratic Party. Same with New Mexico. History tells us that. The numbers tell us that from 2018 and 2016. You can expect that one. In fact, there's actually a really interesting Senate race coming up in 2020 for the state of Colorado. As for the rest of these states, if we go up to the state of Maine, I would say Elizabeth Warren actually narrowly carries Maine at large, and it gets a likely margin in Maine's first district, but the second district I do see Donald Trump carrying by a lean margin. But looking at some other states, the states of Ohio and Iowa. Ohio, I would actually say, goes into the lean column, joined by Iowa. Both of these states do not seem too happy with the president at this point, and I think that Ohio could be a little bit closer than Iowa. It really just depends on the candidate. Some candidates can win in Ohio and lose in Iowa, can win in Iowa and lose in Ohio, or win both or lose both. In this case, Elizabeth Warren would be losing both, but it would narrow down from where it was in 2016. Elizabeth Warren, however, I do think could do well in the state of Nevada, and putting it into the lean column for her. The state of Elizabeth Warren. The state of Nevada itself has been a pretty Democratic state. I mean, we haven't really seen any change from that. Yes, it does get closer towards the election season, but the last time I went to the GOP was in 2004 in a Senate race, I believe 2000. Let me think. Dean Heller just got beat in 2016, and then let me think. 2018, I believe 2016 was a Democratic seat. Went to the Democrats, and then 2018 was, so 2018 was the last time a Republican held office in the Senate races, in the Senate from the state of Nevada. But The state definitely has taken a change in favor of the Democratic Party, but again, still would always be close as a typical swing state would be. The state of Nebraska, I think overall will go to Donald Trump. In fact, I actually think that Nebraska's second would be a likely margin. Going over to the state of New Hampshire, though, I do expect that one to go into the lean column for Elizabeth Warren. But the state of Florida, I expect that one to go to Donald Trump by a lean margin. I think it's going to be tipping the likely scale 3 to 4%, nearing 5%. And my main reasoning for that is, yes, I understand that there's a million new voters added to the voting rolls, but that really only makes sense for candidates that these voters would actually vote for. A lot of these Puerto Rican immigrants, a lot of these, Latino voters, they need the right candidate to vote for, and they're not going to vote for someone like Elizabeth Warren. Sure, yes, Elizabeth Warren is going to win the majority of the Latino vote in the state of Florida. Donald Trump is not too popular amongst Latino voters, especially in the state of Florida, where he's around underwater. It's not too bad. It's around the national average. But the state of Florida itself is still a Republican state. If we look at some numbers from the state of Florida, Warren gets crushed by Donald Trump, +9 for him in this state. Biden loses by 4% as well. So it's not like any of these Democrats are actually doing too well in the state of Florida. But I do think, of course, since it is a swing state, it is going to narrow up into only a lean margin for the president. I do see Elizabeth Warren narrowly carrying the state of Minnesota. I do think that she could also carry actually, no. I'm going to come back to that one. I do think that the state of Michigan can go to Elizabeth Warren as well. I think that one would be a lean margin. That one would narrowly go to her. I do think that her appeal would only go so far. Being a progressive type candidate, a lot of people have said that's the best thing for the white working class, but Biden is the most popular amongst them. So that argument can't really be made in this instance. But the state of Michigan itself is a pretty Democratic state. Can't say so much for the remaining Rust Belt states. Michigan was also the closest margin in 2016 for a win for the president, so that's also something to note as well. But the states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, looking at these states, it's really, really hard to make a generalization there. Wisconsin, I do think, could narrowly go to the president. I think that one would be a tilt GOP state. Biden would do pretty well here. Sanders would do pretty well here. But Warren, not so much. We're looking at a candidate that can't really inspire people to come out and vote for her. Same with that Biden, Sanders, O'Rourke. A lot of these other candidates have nailed down. Yes, she is, inspiring to some, but that's usually to her base. People like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were able to take voters and actually convince them to vote for them by coming to one of the rallies. When you look at someone like Elizabeth Warren, she's typically just preaching to the choir. And looking at the state of Pennsylvania as well, I think this one actually could narrow down into a slight victory for Donald Trump. Again, being in the tilt column, it's very unusual seeing these two states, Republican and Minnesota and Michigan, Democratic, but that's just how I think that this election would play out. 248 electoral votes for Elizabeth Warren, flipping back the state of Michigan, and Donald Trump retaining the states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, giving him a total of 290 electoral votes. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.